Okie doke, hello. This is a very quick video tutorial that we've decided to put together just to give you folks a bit of an idea how we go about getting our characters talking in Her Majesty's Spiffing. So in my scene file, this is Maya, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the program where we do all of our animation and rigging. So we've got the in-game model of Captain Frank Lee English in here at the moment. I'll pull back a wee bit so we can have a look at his rig. So all of these different coloured shapes around him here. For example, this yellow square in the hips here, I can grab that, and I can move that around. And his arms, I can rotate those into different positions, or I can change the way that I'm. Oh, actually, wrong control. I can change, how I'm controlling his arms, so I can, move them around using, this point at his wrist, or I can instead set it up so that I can rotate his joints into position, so on and so forth. So we're not going to concern ourselves too much with his body movements in this little tutorial. We're going to have a chat about the lip sync that we've set up for Captain English here. So we'll zoom into his face. So you'll notice just to the side of his head here, we've got these various shapes. So these are our facial controls. Now we actually have, if I turn it on very quickly, let's just show our joints here. So these different coloured shapes here, they're basically moving these joints that are inside our model, that are attached to the polygons, the mesh, the actual character model here. So for example, if I move his upper arm here, if I just rotate that back and forth, you'll see that all of this joint chain moves. So if I zoom into his face here, you'll see it looks a little bit of a mess at the moment. There's actually lots of joints in his face here. If I grab this control here and move it down, I'll be able to open his jaw up and down. You'll see whenever I open that up that basically this is just another chain of joints that sort of reach out there, to the side of his the sides of his mouth and so on. I can if I move another one of these controls here, it'll sort of move this joint at the side of his mouth up and down, and you can see how the polygons deform as I move that. So let's just drop that all back to the start. Now, usually whenever you're animating a character talking, typically you'd actually start off animating his full, the full body. You would animate all of the big body movements first of all, and once you've done that, then you would go in and start to do all the the smaller movements, things like the mouth movement and the eyes and this kind of stuff. What we actually do is we'll animate the face movements separately from all of the body movements. So we've got a variety of different animations that of our character, standing in the same spot, maybe shifting his weight left and right, folding his arms and this kind of stuff. So we can trigger these different sort of full body movements as his face is as his facial animations being played. So I've loaded an audio clip into my scene at the moment. It's roughly 85 frames long here. So if I hit play, we'll be able to listen to it.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
So basically, this is if you attempt to interact with Sub-Lieutenant Jones. English very politely says that, well, he can't be doing that. So usually the first thing I do whenever I'm animating the face is do all of his head movements first of all, just to get an idea about the performance. So for example, if we have a listen to this again.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
You can hear in the performance that whenever he says not in that way.
Not in that way.
Let's play that again.
Not in that way.
The character kind of hesitates a bit, so as if he's maybe shaking his head, or that's definitely something in his performance that I want to highlight So it must be said, there's nothing more boring than watching live animation, but thanks to thanks to modern technology and digital video editing, we'll be able to speed all of this along. So I'll drop back in at sort of key interesting moments to give you a bit of an insight into what I'm doing. But for the most part, let's start moving this head around.
I like it. I like it. That way. Way. That way. I like the chap, but not in that. I like the chap. I like the chap, but not in that way.
Okay, so this is how it's looking at the moment.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
So what I've tried to do, obviously I'm going very quickly at the moment, which is why I can't claim that this is my finest work. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to do is just
I like the chap, but not in that way.
just all of the big beats during this piece of dialogue. I'm just trying to not exaggerate, but just you know, so that from a distance you would know or get an idea what the character's saying.
I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap, but not in that way.
So what I might do is I might just exaggerate those.
Not in that.
That little shaking of his head a little bit more. Let's try that.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
Okay, that'll probably do us for now, just for the big.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
The big head movement. So the next thing that we'll move on to is the brows and the eyes. So I can grab this controller here and move this around. This is the position that my eyes are looking at. Also, I should have actually said earlier on, for those of you that aren't familiar with 3D animation, this bar along the bottom of the screen, this is my timeline, and basically all that all 3D animation really is I grab my head here, or my head controller here, you see these little red lines along the timeline. These are where I'm setting keyframes. So basically all we're doing is moving our limb or our head, or you know, whatever, into a new position, and setting a keyframe, and then Maya do all of the in-between, sort of the interpolation between all of these points. Anyway, next up we'll move these eyes around here.
I like the chap. I like the chap. I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap.
Okay, so we're trying to create a bit of emotion in our character here. Just obviously he feels a little bit uncomfortable with what with what the player is trying to force him to do here. So he's sort of fidgeting a bit. You know, he's quickly, you know, his eyes are quickly darting around as he tries to think up of an excuse why. You know, why he just couldn't possibly bring himself to do this particular action.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
So now that we've got the eye movements sorted out, the next thing that we'll do is have a look at his eyelids. So as he moves around, you know, the big exhales whenever he's, for example, whenever he says chap, here, this point, and whenever his eyes are, raised back up again, he'll probably, his eyelids will open up, a little bit more, so you see more of his eyes. So we'll quickly scrub through here and move his eyelids about here. Actually, what we'll do here is just try and lose a little bit of this symmetry. It's usually a bit more interesting if both if the face isn't so symmetrical. Here's the chap part.
Like the chap, like the I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the chap, but not in that way. I like the
Okay, so I've maybe went a little bit overboard with his eyes at the end here, but nevertheless, I think that he's starting to look suitably disgusted at what he's being asked to do.
I like the chap, but not in that way.
Okay, so the next thing we want to do is the brows. Now, what you'll notice already, there is a little bit of movement already on the eyebrows. The reason for this is in order to sort of speed up the process a little bit. What you'll notice is if I grab his eye controls here and move them around, you'll notice that there's some automatic movement on the brows. This is handy whenever we're trying to do stuff even quicker than we're doing right now. So it's actually a little bit of a hindrance whenever we're looking complete control over the brows. We have to do a little bit of counter animation at times, where basically you're moving you're going to move the brows the opposite direction that the automatic motion's pushing it. So it's not always ideal, but we'll crack on with this anyway. Let's just grab both our brow controls here. So what I can do is I can lift the brows up and down. I can do them individually as well, and lift the brows up and down, and this motion attribute here just basically switches the direction that they're pointing. So this is one of the points whenever our automatic eye movement is maybe our automatic brow movement's kind of going a bit too far, and I'm having to counter animate, just push it the opposite way that it's looking at, where it's automatically going.
I like it.
So as you may have noticed, I'm sort of winging this, just
not in that.
Just making this up as I go along, to be honest. Usually whenever you're animating, you would have some sort of reference. Some sort of maybe video reference or whatever of not necessarily your actor, but perhaps yourself recording the lines or saying the lines.
That way.
However, we are blitzing through this at as quick as we can. Which, to be honest, isn't great practice for doing good quality animation. However, the result in our game is going to be much better than using some kind of automated system. So it's a little bit of a compromise, but it'll look better than using something automatic.
I like the chat, but not in that way.
So this is what we're looking like at the moment.
I like the chat, but not in that way. I like the chat, but not in that way.
So
I like the chat, but not in that way. I like the.
To be honest, the eye movement's probably a little bit more erratic than I would usually do, but we'll press on anyway. Right. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the animation of the mouth. So the way that our rig is set up here, we can open and close the mouth using this controller here. And then what you'll notice is to the right hand side here we have this sort of diamond shape. And if I move this controller up and down, you'll see that expose more of the teeth. The further up I go here, and then the further down I go, this is more of like an O kind of shape. It's sort of bringing the lips in quite a bit more. Then if I'll close the mouth here, the more to the right here I go, this is sort of creating more of a B shape, you know, sort of pressing the lips in against each other, and then out the opposite way, this is something that you know, sort of just exposes the top teeth. So if we're trying to make sort of an F kind of sound, we'd push this controller over here. So the first thing we're going to do is actually scrub through a timeline and do all of the big mouth movements, the opening and closing of the mouth. We're not going to worry too much about the lip shape just yet. We're going to open and close the mouth, and really what we're going to do is we're going to scrub through the timeline. We're just going to listen for whenever the big exhales are, whenever the characters, you know, sort of pushing pushing sound out, and adjust the opening of the mouth accordingly. Also, we're going to try and make this as poppy as you know possible. As you know, sort of, I'm a big fan of like stop motion animation, and that sort of poppy, you know, lip sync that you get in, you know, things like stuff that Aardman Animations do, the guys behind Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run and films like that. So let's press on.
I like the chat, but not in that way.
So this is how we're looking like at the moment. Excuse me. So we can see these are just the big mouth movements.
I like the chat, but not in that way. I like the chat, but not in that way.
You can see that I've tried to make the movements very poppy. So you know, typically whenever the character starts to talk, it's just over one frame. We have quite a big, you know, mouth movement. You know, stuff like whenever he says "but," it's actually quite like an explosive movement. So now that we've got that roughed out, the next thing we'll do is try and set up you know, the position of the lips here using this controller here. So we'll scrub back to start and we'll go through things again.
I like the chat, but I like the chat, but not in that way. I like the chat, but not in that way. I like the chat, but not in that way. I like the chat, but not in that way.
So we're almost finished now, or as much as as much as we really have time to do. grief. I've got this control at the side for moving just the tongue up and down. You don't notice this that much, but we'll quickly set that up. And again, nobody's
I like
really
the
going to see
chapter,
that,
not in that way.
The final thing that we'll do is just adjust the sides of his mouth here, so we can sort of adjust his emotion a little bit. So let's say he's feeling quite awkward, so he's going to be more frowning whenever he's saying this line.
I like the chapter. I like the chapter.
So usually I like to, if we have like one half of the mouth slightly further down than the other, it creates this sort of nice awkward look. So let's save this and see what it's all looking like.
I like the chapter, not in that way. I like the chapter, not in that way. I like the chapter, not in that way. I like...
Okie doke, I reckon that's good enough to go in the game now. So I'll very quickly export this, and using the power of digital video, we'll jump into the game and we'll see how that looks. Gosh, that was quick. Here we are in Unity. I'll just very quickly get Captain English to take his seat here beside Alad, and we'll quickly try and interact with him.
I like the chapter, not in that way.
And there you have it. We've successfully brought our animation into the game engine.
If I do that, I'll have to go on a course.
And everything seems to be working okay.
I like the chapter, not in that way.
Well, hopefully you found that quick peek behind the curtain insightful. Of course, if you haven't already, do check out our demo where you'll get to listen to English say a great many other lines, all painstakingly hand animated as well. And if you feel so compelled, do visit our Kickstarter page and pledge your support to help make this adventure game. Thanks for your time.